I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello. Here. Berry, here. Casper.
Here.
Jackson. Here. Lloyd.
Here.
Nenza.
Here.
Malloy.
Here. First up is a public hearing for holiday waiver.
Yes, so the state changed a regulation that requires schools to be out of session on Election Day. So we reconvened the calendar committee to find that day somewhere else, because originally we had it as a student attendance day. And over 80% of the calendar committee suggested that we waive Columbus Day and instead make that a student attendance day. So that's the purpose of the hearing today.
Okay. So I don't need a motion or anything.
Do we need to take action? So we just need to ask for if there's any public comment.
Okay.
And then later on in the agenda, you'll see a calendar revision action.
Right, okay. Is there any public comment for the holiday waiver? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. The first item is just, I want to reassure the board that we have reviewed again the district transition plan. We had a rumor last week that the governor was going to make a statement and possibly require school districts to open school full remote. Instead, it was basically a reaffirmation that districts need to have a plan that's compliant with ISB regulations. It's my understanding that there's a good number of school districts not in our region whose plans do not necessarily meet the guidelines, or they haven't completed and submitted a plan yet. We took that as an opportunity to review ours in concert with the ISB guidance and those of the American Association of Pediatrics, and we believe that our plan is indeed compliant. Principals are doing the challenging work of trying to schedule this plan within the construct of parents' choices that have been made. The survey results were very similar to what we anticipated, and as I said, there are a couple grade levels where the number of students that have signed up for something makes that grade level a bit of a challenge, but principals are in the process of overcoming those, and I'm confident that we can begin our transition plan for those who chose hybrid in conditions and class sizes not to exceed the amounts that I gave you when you ratified the plan. So I just wanted to give you that reassurance. I also want to say that there's been a good number of folks in the community who have appreciated our work and the plan that you ratified last time we met. There's been a good number that have expressed their concerns. There were several of the people who wanted a full 5-day in-person that have reiterated that. And as you can see, as you've seen in some emails from some of 146 staff, there's a good number of staff people that believe that we should be opening in a full remote posture. And you saw a peaceful protest by some teachers this evening, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and recognize that it happened, and that I appreciate that the teachers were appropriate and professional and reasonable in expressing their opinions, and I appreciate that. And next, I'd like to offer the board an update on construction by Matt.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As you recall, we have renovation project going on at Fierk and Cruz this summer, which included renovation of the student bathrooms, complete painting of the interior of the school. LED light fixtures are replacing the old fluorescent light fixtures, and ceiling tile replacement is occurring in both schools. The project has suffered some delays due to global supply chain interruptions due to the coronavirus situation. Currently, let me start with what's been completed. Both schools are completely painted. All the LED light fixtures have been installed. The ceiling tile replacement at Fierk has been completed. As we discussed last week, because the project by the construction company ran a bit long, it prevented us from getting the start we needed at Cruz. We're at about 75% ceiling tile replacement. This will in no way affect the education of the kids once we start. The bathrooms are basically what remain, and what remains there is the acoustical ceiling tiles that need to be installed, followed by the light fixtures. The plumbers are doing the final hookups of the plumbing fixtures and drinking fountains. We're hoping that the project is completed this week. The custodial staff have been great because they've had to work around this. They've had to clean twice, sometimes 3 times. But I can assure the board that Fierk and Cruz will be ready to be open for the teachers and the students.
Thanks, Matt. Because of obvious reasons, we're not having a traditional bus driver orientation breakfast as we've held in past years, but I'd like to ask Jay Money to discuss a little bit what we're going to do in lieu of that.
Yes, a few years ago we did start inviting the bus drivers in for an orientation meeting, a get-to-know-you kind of thing, talking about expectations. But this year, with everything going on, we're not going to do that. Sue and I will record a little video message and send it to them, and that'll be it for this year instead of the big get-together.
Now I'd like Wendy to talk a little bit about new teacher induction and our mentoring program.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Staywick. We started our mentor and induction program today. We have an absolute wonderful and competent group of teachers joining District 146. These new teachers will be spending some time over the next week just orientating themselves to their grade level curriculum, their resources in their buildings. We'll be wrapping up our mentor and induction program on Monday, August 17th, and it's going really well.
Thanks, Wendy. Have some condolences to share. Lisa Gartland's brother passed away. Lisa works in food service at Fulton. Rosa Ruiz's mother passed away. Rosa's a custodian at Fulton. Carol Friel's brother passed away. Carol is the art teacher at Memorial. And Kelly Voliva's father-in-law passed away. Kelly is the director of student services. So we extend our deepest sympathy to those staff members and their families. And a couple celebrations. Teresa Eskra is overjoyed with the birth of her second granddaughter, Grace Rose. Grace Rose weighed 7 pounds, 15 ounces and was 20 inches. Teresa's second grade teacher at Fulton. And Sherry Rice welcomed Alden Elliott into the world on June 5th. Alden weighed 6 pounds, 4 ounces, and it was reported that Alden loves to snuggle. Sherry's a 5th grade teacher at Fierk. So we celebrate and share the joy of those two families. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Staywick. With that, this time I'd like to open it up to the citizens. They'd like to make a comment. I'm opening it up for the citizens to make a comment. If you'd like to come up and make a comment. You want to come up to the mic? If you could put your name on the sheet.
Hi, my name is Allison Von Borstel. I am an alum of Carl Sandburg High School, one of the feeder schools, a school that has also gone fully remote, and I'm also the daughter of a beloved teacher of this district. I'm concerned because COVID has spread rapidly. It's my understanding that this district has a student body of about 2,500 students, and COVID as of now has killed 67 times that in a matter of months. So I'm concerned because teachers won't be able to force students to wear masks, they won't be able to force students to wash their hands, and they won't be able to force students to remain isolated once they're at home. When it comes down to it, I'm concerned that this board is asking teachers and staff to put their lives at risk for their job. I'm concerned that this board is taking these teachers' lives for granted and telling them that they're expendable. So I want to urge this board to please follow what CPS and many of your surrounding schools have done with the same exact student body, and that is to go fully remote, at least at the beginning, so we can save people's lives, both the students, the staff, but also the grandparents of these students as well. So we don't have to make any more announcements like the one you just made about the beloved ones of teachers and staff's ones dying. That is everything. I respect the board, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Okay, moving on. Union report. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, sorry, thanks. My name is Henry Malinowski. I have two children that go to school in this district. One is at Fulton and one here at Central. There's no doubt, right now we're rough times, but keeping these kids locked in the home is not the way to do this. I've seen many teachers, there's teachers that live in this community. They have no problem being up at Bulldogs Field watching baseball games. They're having garage sales. They're out in the public. We cannot keep these kids locked in. They're not learning. Putting a kid on a computer for 5 hours every day is not going to work. My kid learned nothing from March till June last year. 6th grader, nothing. You're going to have kids, parents wanting to hold their kids back. We need to get these kids out of the house. It's not healthy sitting in the house. They're snacking all day. Then again, who's paying for daycare? We're going to have to send our kids to daycare. We're going to have to miss work. We're going to lose our jobs. Are they going to take a pay cut? From what I'm understanding, e-learning is 5 hours. A regular school day is almost 8. Do we need art in gym? I don't think so. If it's going to be 5 hours, let's focus on the subjects that are needed for these kids. And one last thing. Actually, no, I covered it. All right, good. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any more comments?
Okay. First of all, let me say that although I am a parent in this district, I am an educator as well. I want to start off by saying thank you to the school board administration and staff for just the amount of hours and planning that has gone into what you have done. It is greatly appreciated. As a parent, I think that you have done a great job of creating a plan that considers the safety and well-being of the students by allowing an e-learning option for parents at home and a hybrid model, as well as numerous safety protocols that you have already put into place. I greatly appreciate that and the time that you have put in. As a fellow educator, who myself will be returning to face a large number of students in the 180s, in the Catholic schools, I do understand the fear. COVID is overwhelming, and as we learn more and more, the anxiety can be difficult to manage. That being said, I challenge all teachers to remember their first call into teaching. We love our students, and we challenge that most of us view teaching as not as a career, but as a calling. We spend countless hours thinking about and researching ways to better and teach our children, because we usually call them our children. Teaching is an underappreciated and incredibly stressful job that requires an unbelievable amount of patience and self-sacrifice. And now we are asking teachers to sacrifice more. Yet, I challenge all my fellow educators that it is now our turn to rise up and join in this battle that the nurses, health professionals, and essential workers have already been battling for months now. It's our time to be the heroes standing on the front lines, arm in arm, or 6 feet away with these kids. I have such immense faith and pride in our compassionate educators in this district, I am proud to call myself a parent of District 146, and I'm glad to stand side by side with all the teachers that bravely come and face this with our students. Could our children academics wait or function with a fully remote option? Quite possibly. But as an educator who has looked in the eyes of these students online in the spring, I fully believe that their long-term emotional and mental health are in jeopardy. I ask that you consider what the long-term effects will be on these students and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Brown. I spoke at the last board meeting, and I just wanted to make another quick statement. I want to speak up again on behalf of our special education students and to remind our staff and the board of the legal responsibilities to provide that free and appropriate education and to provide that special education in the least restrictive environment. And for my child and many others like her, remote learning is the most restrictive environment. And it's not meeting her needs, and we have the legal responsibility to meet those children's needs. So please consider to think about them and whether or not that remote learning is appropriate for them and if it's the right environment for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dina McInerney. I have 3 children in this district. 2 are at Fulton and 1 is at Central. I am also an educator myself, and I just wanted to commend the board, commend the principals, everyone for all of your hard work and what you've done. I fully feel that the kids need to be back. They need to be here at school. They need to be learning. Seeing what my son, who has an IEP for speech, seeing him struggle during the e-learning was just horrid. He could not get it. He needs that one-on-one. My school district is doing a hybrid, and I'm very proud to say that I will be at school every single day working with the students that will be there in the A and the B group. I do personally feel that being at school for 5 days is going to be the best for these children, like Frankfurt School District is doing. They're providing 5 days in school or 5 days remote. But the fact that we are at least at school for part of the day, I think is going to be one step in the right direction. And I just want to say thank you for continuing with that and making sure that our students are in the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beth Cromery. I have a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. And I tend to get overly emotional about things, so today I thought, well, actually the past couple weeks I've been trying to look at this very fact-based. And what are the numbers? What are the numbers telling us? And I was really appreciative that you guys said that you're still committed and dedicated to the hybrid model. And because I was school supply shopping with my kids yesterday, and they both said to me, they are so excited. They are so excited to get back into class because we have signed up for the hybrid model. And so I think the facts that, or the numbers that I wanted to state here, it's more for the teachers to hear, and I think more for you guys as a board to also hear, to just take into consideration and to know this. And because I think a lot of times the media puts these numbers out here and they don't give you the full story. So here's just some of the things that I try to keep in mind as a parent, you know, who is sending my kids into class. There are 12.83 million people in the state of Illinois. And as of Sunday yesterday, there were 41,354 tests conducted. There were 1,382 positive tests. And out of that, the age group of 20 people and under, 66 people tested positive. It's in the whole state of Illinois. So in the whole state of Illinois, 66 people under the age of 20 were positive out of 12.83 million people, okay? That just says volumes to me, okay? Tinley Park has had 419 positive cases since this started, and we have had 0 deaths. The recovery rate for this is 95%. The recovery rate for Tinley Park is 100%. I'm not saying that this is not a deadly disease. I'm not. But when you look at the metrics, it's very telling. And since June, this has mutated. And Dr. Ezekiel just said herself last week, the symptoms are very much similar now to allergies. And if you look at it, as of yesterday, 138 people were on ventilators. We have 5,700 ventilators in the state of Illinois. I mean, this is great. This is great news. This is where we want to be as a state. We're under 5%. That's the threshold that the governor wants us to be at. We have 352 people in the ICU in the whole state of Illinois. I mean, these are great numbers. I can understand the teachers' fears, but we have to look at this holistically, and we're in a great spot. I can understand their fears, but it is absolutely the right decision to let the kids go back into school. And if teachers wear their masks, and if students wear their masks, the transmission rate is so low, and people can stay healthy. People have been going to work every day since day one, and you have the opportunity to stay healthy. So I can understand the teacher's plight, but if we do what we're supposed to, you can stay healthy, and these numbers are proving it. And I encourage everybody to just take a few minutes each day, check out the Illinois Department of Public Health, and look at the numbers for yourself, and that's where you're gonna see the true facts. That's the true story, and that's where you'll see it. And so, you know, again, my kids are so excited to come back into school, and I'm thrilled that you guys are still, you know, dedicated to allowing the hybrid model to continue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jamie Hubbard. I've been here before. I have the pleasure of being on the transition team at Fulton, and I just want to say we are going to be so safe. They have really thought about every angle, every corner, I mean, it is amazing what they have put together over there, and it has put every worry I had away, and I can't wait for the parents to really, teachers to really see what they have come up with to keep these kids safe while at school, and the teachers and the staff and the administration. So I'm really excited for everyone to see what has been put in place. So just want to let you guys know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment? Thank you all for coming out and giving us your input. It's very important, and we do appreciate it. So moving on, is there a union report? No union report? Okay, moving on to action items. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move that we approve items 7.1, approval of minutes, 7.2, approval of closed session minutes, 7.3, approval of the destruction of closed session tapes, 7.4, approval of financial items, and 7.5, approval of personnel items.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello? Yes. Barry, yes. Casper?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lloyd?
Yes.
Nenza?
Yes.
Malloy?
Yes. 7.6, approval revised calendar utilizing the holiday waiver for October 12th, 2020 Columbus Day is Student Attendance Day.
Yes, I'd like to also point out that there's a second change to the calendar that we're asking you to ratify. That's making Friday, September 4th, Remote Learning Planning Day. You'll recall that we've added 2 such days before students come in, that we're going to take teachers through a learning journey about remote instruction, COVID, and a dozen other things. And this will be an opportunity for us to reflect on how the first opening days of school have gone and whether or not we need to change course at all, what enhancements we need to make. I was a little reluctant spending another of our 5 for the year so early in the year, but administration was quite clear that this is going to be a really responsible thing to do to make sure that everything that we put in place is working the way we intend it to. And also teachers will get some learning on writing valid and reliable common assessments, which you understand is important on the PLC journey. That will also eventually make us a bit less dependent on some of the standardized testing when we have good, valid, locally conceived common formative assessments. So I just wanted to draw the board's attention to that there's actually 2 changes to the calendar and not just 1.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the revised calendar for 2020-2021, utilizing Columbus Day as a student attendance day and adding 3 remote PD learning days.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, Secretary call the roll.
Aiello? Yes. Barry, yes. Casper?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lloyd?
Yes.
Nenza? Malloy?
Yes. 7.7, approval of renewal of auditor's contract engagement letter.
Before, I've heard a number of you say on a number of occasions that you can't get enough of Jay Money. I've got good news for you tonight. You're about to hear from him on 5 consecutive action items, the first of which is the renewal of the auditor's contract.
Yes, thank you. I don't think anyone's ever said that actually, but all right. So we have tended to renew our auditing agreement in 3-year blocks, and our window has come up to do that again. So you have before you a resolution to pass a new 3-year agreement with our auditors. We're happy with their services that they provide. They're qualified, they're professional, they're knowledgeable, and we want to continue that relationship for the next 3 years.
Okay, thank you. Is there a
Can I
motion?
just ask, why is it a 3-year contract? Why don't we just do it year to year?
We could do year to year if we want.
Is there an advantage to doing it for 3 years?
I think just locking in the rate is the main advantage.
Okay.
Last time, 3 years ago, was the first time we switched to the 3-year agreement, and it worked well. And it's, I don't know, that I'm happy with the arrangement.
Okay. Are we comfortable with the arrangement if it's Ed McCormick, right? Is our
Yes.
If he's retires or leaves the firm, are we still comfortable with them as in the engagement?
We really only deal with Ed at the very end. I'm sure he's kind of in the background, but he's not that involved in the day-to-day of the actual audit.
All right.
So yes is the answer to your question.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the 3-year agreement with Mueller and Company for auditing services, year ended June 30th, 2022, as presented.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, Secretary call the roll.
Aiello? Yes. Barry, yes. Casper?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lloyd?
Yes.
Nenza?
Yes.
Malloy?
Yes. 7.8, approval of notice to withdraw from ISIC.
All right. District 146 belongs to an insurance cooperative for liability, property, casualty insurance. And in Illinois currently, there are 2 very large pools of insurance companies and then 1 small pool. We're in the small one. And the small one is basically going to be dissolving at the end of the year. A couple of members have withdrawn. We had 1 other member with some very bad experience that has messing with the rates that the pool is getting. So it looks like the pool is going to dissolve at the end of this year. So we're putting in our notice now. We have to give 6 months notice. And I'm in the process of investigating the other pools. I'll have a recommendation possibly next month or else the month after what to do. This is effective December 31st, by the way. So we still have time to find a replacement insurance pool.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move the Board of Education approve the resolution giving notice of withdrawal from the Illinois School Insurance Cooperative no later than December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello.
Yes.
Barry, yes. Casper.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Lloyd.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes.
Malloy.
Yes. 7.9, approval of amendment to student transportation service agreement.
Yes, this is the agreement that we made with our bus company to pay them a small portion of our normal fees during the shutdown period. They have ongoing regular costs that continued, bus leases and things like that. And there's a wide range of opinions from we shouldn't pay them anything to they asked for 80%, and we settled at 37%. I thought that was fair, especially considering how quickly all of that came on. And so this is just the formalization of that agreement.
Okay, and is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the amendment to Student Transportation Services Agreement as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Our contracts for next year are all set.
Contracts
and-
for next year are in place.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello.
Yes.
Barry, yes. Casper.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Lloyd.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes.
Malloy.
Yes. 7.10, approval of drainage easement agreement with 146 and Fox College.
All right. Fox College is the vet tech school that's located right next door to, am I pointing the right way? Right next door to Central here. And they are expanding and adding a new parking lot. And as such, they have to add new detention. And they don't really have room to do that, so they approached us and asked if they could tie into the detention pond that's behind Central here. And so we had DLA, our architects, do the calculations to see how much burden it would put on our pond. And Fox College paid for DLA's time to do the calculations and everything. And they determined it would be a very minuscule addition to our detention pond. So we are good with signing this agreement, being a good neighbor, allowing them to tap into our pond. They're going to pay for some maintenance costs if there are any. And it will really cause no impact to us, even if we do any expansion here in the future. So we're recommending approval of that, and that is before you tonight.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move that the Board of Education approves the granted easement with Fox College as presented.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello.
Yes.
Barry, yes. Casper.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Lloyd.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes.
Malloy.
Yes. 7.11, approval of resolution designating depositories.
So we have a list of banks, essentially, that we are allowed to invest our funds with. The Illinois Public Fund Investment Act governs what types of things we're allowed to invest in, and it's very conservative, CDs and short-term kinds of things. But the board has to approve the companies that we can use for that. And so we do about half of our investing with PMA Securities, and the other half has been with UBS Financial. And really, our relationship with UBS is more with a person, the investment advisor there, and he's moving to a different company, so I would like to continue to utilize his services. So he's going to Morgan Stanley, And so I just want to add Morgan Stanley to our list of approved vendors. We'll still compare rates, we still look for the best deal, but this just gives us another option.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution designating depositories as presented.
Is there any discussion? Hey, Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello? Yes. Barry, yes. Casper?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lloyd?
Yes.
Nenza? Malloy?
Yes. Okay, information items. 8.1, our tentative budget for 2020-2021.
All right, you have in board docs the presentation that's also going to be up on the screen here, but this is the preliminary budget that is required by law to be on display for 30 days. So the 30-day clock starts now. We will bring the final budget to you in September for approval. Here's the budget timeline. In my world, budgeting is kind of year-round, but we're at the August meeting where we do the preliminary budget, and then next month we'll go to the final budget. First, though, before we get into the New Year's budget, I want to just take a couple minutes to look at how the year that just ended went. So looking at the revenue side, all three categories of revenue, local, state, and federal, came in slightly above budget, and we ended up being about $800,000 over budget in a good way. So that sounds like a lot of money, but on $44 million, it's 1.9%. Next one. And then similarly, on the expense side, we were under in most of the categories. A lot of that can be related to just the way the year ended. With 3 months of shutdown, our expenses were a little bit lower during that time. So a lot of the bigger categories, salaries, benefits, supplies, purchase services, were less. And then we were also way under in the capital outlay. That was a combination of the end of the addition projects at the 4 schools, which we still have some money outstanding on that, and then the startup of the renovations that are going on now. Last year at this time, when we had to estimate how much was going to happen during the year, I estimated a little high. So even though we're way under budget there, that money will still be spent eventually. The other objects was also over, and a lot of that is out-of-district tuition. We had a number of high-needs students come to us, and we placed them out and paid tuition, so that one category was over. But overall, if you look at the bottom line, we were under budget by several $1 million. Next one. This is just a summary. So instead of breaking out every individual category, total revenue was over by $800,000. Expenses were under by 4.5, but $3 million of that was construction. And as a grand total, then we did $5.5 million better than we budgeted. But again, $3 million of that was construction. Next one. Last year, I showed you a slide, this slide, showing that we were projecting a $4.8 million deficit, but when you take out the construction costs, the one-time extra bond interest payments that we had, if you just look at what we call operating, the continuing services, we had a surplus. So this is what the budget was. The next slide will show you how we actually did on that. We actually ended with a surplus, and then if you take out the construction costs and the bond interest payments that took place, we had a surplus of $3 million. So it was a good year for us fiscally. So that's the quick summary for the year that just ended. Now we'll turn to the upcoming year. So here's kind of the overall summary. Starting the year with $37.8 million in the bank. And again, we're going to have a deficit, but I'll explain why. Most of it's construction related. And ending the year with $34.5 million next June 30th. So again, a similar slide. If you take out the things that I call one-time costs that are not recurring, we have construction, which is the renovations at Fierick and Cruz, most of which will be paid for in this fiscal year. we have one more year of these bond payments left. And then I added a category this year called COVID supplies. I'm hoping that's a one-year thing, but who knows? It's for all the extra things that we're buying, sanitizers and masks and just all kinds of extra cleaning supplies. That's a very broad estimate of how much it's going to cost. So if you take those three things out and just look at the operations, we're going to have a small deficit this year, 94,000. But again, remember, most of the budget, I try to budget conservatively, meaning revenues come in a little bit better than we expect, expenses are a little lower. So even though it's showing a deficit, I think we're going to end up with a surplus when it's all said and done. And you guys have seen this, the board has seen this slide a number of times. This is where our revenue comes from, 85% local, and then 10% state and 5% federal. We're expecting about 43.7 million this year. On the local side, we receive, the majority of our money comes from property taxes, and you can see the two different years of taxes that we're getting. And a big factor, though, is interest revenue. We're projecting to go down substantially. If you remember, interest rates in March, when all of this was hitting, went from essentially 2% down to almost zero. So we have some longer-term investments that are out there that are earning interest, but as those come due, we're going to be reinvesting at very low interest rates. I did a CD the other day at 0.10%, very low. So interest is going down. The net result of that is local revenue is actually going to go down this year, and that's our biggest source of revenue. So here is the comparison last year to this year. Local revenue down 197,000, or 0.5% down. It's pretty unusual for that category to go down, but this is one of those years. On the state side, we are in tier 2 of the evidence-based funding model, which is the same as before. The state has said that they're keeping funding flat. Normally, tier 2 would entitle us to some new money, but this year the state is in bad financial shape. So I would call flat funding a win for us, and we're estimating all the other state revenues are going to be flat. And a side note, the state still owes us $260,000 from last year. They're 45 or 60 days behind on their payments. I think I have a slide, a bullet point similar to that on the bottom of this presentation every year. They're almost always behind by some amount. So here's the state revenue summary. It's a very small change, 0.2% difference from last year. And again, state revenues are only 10% of our budget. Federal revenues are going up a substantial amount, 470,000, which is 25%, which is a big percentage, but it's on a smaller number. Most of that is because of the CARES Act. One of the stimulus bills that was passed, the district got additional funding for that, and that's accounted for in this federal revenue category. There's a corresponding increase in expenses that goes along with it, but the revenue is up because of this new grant this year. So then here is the revenue summary. Local is down a little bit, state is almost flat, federal is up, and so overall revenue is going up 282,000, which again might sound like a large number, but on 43 million, it's a very small percentage, but it's still going up. So that's the revenue side. On the expense side, here is how we spend our money. Like most school districts, 2/3 of our expenses are salaries and benefits, and then we have the capital outlay number really fluctuates greatly from year to year. It's at 2.9 million this year in anticipation of the Fierick and Cruz renovations. We can go to the next one. And then I'm not going to go through all of these, but here's how all the individual categories have changed. Salaries are up a little bit. Benefits are actually slightly down, and that's because of the mix of family versus single that people have chosen, and our staff count is a few people smaller than it was last year. The purchase services is up. That's primarily due to that grant that I was talking about. And we put an increase, the other category is where the special ed out-of-district tuition costs are, so we had to increase that budget to account for the kids that we're placing out of district. So total expenses 47 million, but again, you could see 2.9 million of that is capital, which is a one-time thing. So this was the first slide of the FY21. It shows our overall budget, 37 million, starting balance, deficit, largely due to construction, 34 million ending, and then the final slide is what the operating, the ongoing amount is when you take out the construction and the one-time things, and it's a very small deficit for this year. But the district is in good financial shape, and again, this is just the preliminary budget. I'm sure there will be changes between now and September, and I'll point out what has changed when we get to that point. But that is it for the J Money Show.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's move on to 8.2, revised policies first read.
Yes, so there were only 6 policies in this batch. 5 were inconsequential, either no changes or just changes to the reference numbers. There was one that I want to draw the board's attention to, that's 4.180, which is pandemic preparedness, management, and recovery, which is a new policy. The Illinois Attorney General and U.S. Department of Education have taken a number of actions and or issued guidance to address the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic as it affects public school operations, as you're aware. The policy specifically speaks to the governor's executive orders, relaxing the in-person physical quorum requirement for open meetings, some flexibility within our grants, the payment of employee salaries during a pandemic, and remote and or blended remote learning day plans, and remote learning planning days. So I wanted to draw the board's attention to that. We'll ask you to read them a second time in September and adopt them. And if there's any changes between now and then, I will be sure to point them out.
Thank you. Moving on to 9, communications correspondence.
Tinley Council, School District 146, Board of Education and Administration of School District 146. Thank you so much for the gift card to Amazon. Believe me, it will be spent very quickly. I really appreciate it. Mostly, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of School District 146. As a parent and staff member, I have been truly honored to be involved in every aspect. I thank God that I had this privilege. The past 23 plus years have had its ups and downs, changes, but mostly the sense of family and belonging. I will always have very fond and happy memories of my time at Fulton, Sandage, and at District 146. Thank you again for all. Very fondly, Annette Sultanian.
Dear Karen and Tinley Council, I have truly enjoyed every minute of my teaching career with District 146. It is with mixed emotions that I finish my time here. I will miss the aha moments while educating the children of tomorrow. This is not how I thought I would finish my career, but we made it through e-learning. Hopefully there will be some normalcy in the fall. Enjoy a well-deserved summer break as I begin my forever summer. Thank you for the gift card, Diane Schultz.
Okay, and that brings us to the end. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
Aiello? Barry, yes. Casper?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lloyd?
Yes.
Nenza? Malloy?
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming out, and thank you very much for your comments.